I am chair of the Orange County Task Force on Hoarding. We do have agencies come together like Adult Protective Services, in some cases, Child Protective Services. We have cleanup companies, organizers, other agencies, Mental Health Association of Orange County, many more that I can't think of right now. But we all come together and everyone's had an experience and they bring their resources, what has worked, what hasn't. And we troubleshoot cases. We have a monthly meeting and they bring a case to the meeting and we all troubleshoot. So it's a much needed resource for the community. And most people, when faced with hoarding behaviors, do not know what to do. So the task force is exactly for that. I'm also co-founder of Beyond Our Belongings. It's a peer support group, and I co-founded it with Marilyn Milligan. She's an LCSW who has since retired, so I facilitate it on my own. And then I do one-on-one help on the side.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Kimberly. If people wanted to bring cases for troubleshooting to the task force, but they're not in Orange County, could they do that?
Yes,
Okay. That's a fantastic resource. Thank you.
absolutely.
That's great.
So my special guest is Dana, and I would like to introduce her right now. Dana,
Hi.
if you could just let us know a little bit about what you're doing here today.
Okay, yes, I'm sharing as someone that's been in the support group for hoarding or decluttering. I consider myself a hoarder, and I'm going to give you some information on what it's like from my end.
Excellent. Thank you, Dana. We're very lucky to have her today. So we're going to do a breakout right off. Two questions. How much do you know about hoarding? And how would you approach a situation where someone appears to have hoarding behaviors? So we'll do the breakout for 6 minutes, 3 people per room. So you each have about 2 minutes to talk about what you know and how would you approach it. And there's no right or wrong answers.
Okay, so I'm capturing those questions and I'm putting them in the chat. So if any of you want to just grab those questions out of the chat so that you have them with you, so you can remember what our topic is during the breakout. The questions are, how much do you know about hoarding? And how would you approach a situation where someone appears to have hoarding behaviors? So I think it's a great breakout subject. And yeah, I'd like to be part of that conversation. So do you want me to set up the breakout rooms then?
Yes, please.
Okay.
3 per room.
Okay. So we've got 3 rooms. And do you and Dana want to be in the rooms as well?
No.
No, okay. Very good. Okay, so this is going to be a 6-minute breakout. At the moment, it's 3:37. So we will go until 3:43, and I'll give you a 2-minute warning on that. So it's 3:37 now. We'll go till 3:43. You'll get a warning at 3:41. All right.
Thank you, Libby.
You're welcome. Hoping this will work. Sometimes people aren't as familiar with breakout sessions and get confused, but hopefully it'll all work out great. It looks like Dana got swept up.
Oh, in 2 different rooms.
Yes, she is.
You have 2 Danas.
Oh, I have 2 Danas, huh? Is it possible that there's a Dana Driscoll and another Dana?
Yeah, it looks like there is.
Okay.
So you put Dana Driscoll in room 3. Maybe you could
Yes.
put, that leaves one person. You can put that one person in one of the other rooms.
Dino? Okay.
Yeah.
But it looks like they're talking to each other.
Are they?
Yeah. Because if you look at the breakout room box, do you
Oh,
see
the
how
mic?
the microphone means that someone is talking?
Okay.
And
All right. Then can you chat her to see if she's okay in there?
I could go in there and talk and
Okay.
make sure.
Just
Okay.
see how it's going.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Orlando.
Hi, how you doing? I just came
I'm
to say
doing
hello real
okay.
quick. See how you doing.
We've got people in breakout rooms saying, what do you know about hoarding? And what would you do if you saw someone who might be doing hoarding behaviors? Can I
Nice.
put you in one of the breakout rooms?
Sure, why not? Go for it.
Okay. I think you have to click on it. Okay. Orlando's here, Libby.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm having a problem with my breakout room because I thought I was sitting here messing with my sound and I can't hear either of the people in the breakout room and they're muted the whole time, so I don't know if they're even there, honestly.
Oh, really? Yeah, their mics and their cameras are off. Maybe they don't want to participate. Did you put her in a new room, Libby? You're on mute. Libby, are you talking to me?
it sometimes, yes, I was. It sometimes happens that people step away and they don't participate.
Yeah.
And we might do better at the end of the session to just have the conversation as a larger group.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah. It's a fairly small group. We got 11 or 12 people, so.
Okay.
Oh, I need to bring everybody back.
Oh, there's a new person who just joined, Dr. Cash.
Oh, hello, Dr. Cash. Okay.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you for coming to our conversation about unmanageable cluttering. People are in a breakout session, but they're about to come back in like a minute. So
Okay.
we're just the the questions that they're thinking about are the ones that Kimberly is sharing here. How much do you know about hoarding? And how would you approach a situation where someone appears to have hoarding behaviors? So hopefully we'll get to hear some of their thoughts.
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
How did your presentation go?
It went really well. I had a couple of power outages of all the days to have power outages.
Oh,
But overall, it went well. It happened like near the middle,
mhm.
and then it was like a surge, and then at the end.
Uh-huh.
So it was a really good, really well received presentation.
Oh, that's great.
And 'cause I was so nervous, but
Yeah.
it worked out.
Oh, that's good.
Worked out.
Glad you got through. Oh,
Yes. And Billy was an awesome support.
good. Good.
Yes.
Welcome back, everybody.
Sorry we didn't get to finish, Dana.
Oh,
You can message me maybe and let me know.
you didn't get to finish your conversation. Well, that's a good sign that you wanted to finish.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Really quickly, does anybody want to raise their hand and share maybe some key points of what came out of the discussion? No?
Sometimes it's hard.
Kimberly,
Yeah.
this is Dana.
Hi.
Hi. So I was in a room with two other people. I shared about my history, and someone else shared about their history, and it was brief but good.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Excellent. All right.
I mean,
Let's go ahead and-
I guess I didn't get to be in a group, but I can try to answer these questions.
Great.
I would say that I've seen very different perspectives about hoarding. One perspective is from people that I know that struggle with it, and a completely different one is from media expressions and portrayals. And it's like two different universes. And number two is, how would you approach a situation where someone appears to have hoarding behaviors? I guess my experience is that there isn't always a cookie cutter approach, that people are so individuals, and so I think it really depends on the person. I guess those would be my answers there.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So, what is disordered cluttering? Disordered cluttering is a peer preferred term for hoarding disorder. And the reason why I came up with this term, created this term, is because of the stigma with the word hoarding. I don't know if you've seen those shows where the letters are dripping, hoarders with the dripping letters, and treating people with a mental health disorder as entertainment. You know, we don't have programs where someone has schizophrenia and we're following them around and watching episodes as entertainment. So episodes of psychosis or something like that. So it's very sad about how media portrays hoarding, which I call disordered cluttering, and it's how I'm going to refer to it for the rest of this presentation. Hoarding disorder does have a unique place in the DSM-5, which is the American Psychiatric Association's mental health disorder Bible. So here we have an example of just clutter and collecting on the left, and on the right, we have disordered cluttering. As you can see, it's more extreme. And so I'm going to start out with what disordered cluttering is not. And that is, it's not a result of going without as a child or being raised during the Depression. Not due to the death of a loved one, depression, laziness. It's not because you inherited your grandmother's stuff. It's not ADHD, it's not greediness. The diagnosis used to be under obsessive compulsive disorder, but it in fact is not. That's why it has its own unique diagnosis now. Another myth is that, excuse me, hold on. Another myth is that someone is using their belongings to insulate themselves physically. That's not what disordered cluttering is either. It doesn't only occur in the elderly. I was identified in my 40s. And the real value of the belongings can range from true trash, like fast food leftovers in containers, to really, really expensive items. And just understand, though, for someone with disordered cluttering, the value is the same. So we may see it objectively or subjectively. How we are seeing it is that it's trash. But the person with disordered cluttering has a distinct value to these items, maybe saving the containers for future use, and things like that. So disordered cluttering is a perfect storm, and it begins with brain differences. They have done brain studies, and people with disordered cluttering have different brains. So I'm laying the groundwork there. Okay, we start with that. And then with this perfect storm, you have other things. One of the things that comes along with the brain differences is trouble with executive function. So information processing, organization. The term chronic disorganization is appropriate. So you can have trauma, loss, physical limitations, comorbidities. Comorbidities can mean you have another mental health diagnosis. So, or you may not even be diagnosed, but you have a condition. So very common is depression. So it exists along with the brain differences and the result of those. So depression, anxiety, ADHD, a lot of other conditions can coexist. We are 2 to 5% of the population. So that's 1 in 20. This estimate is conservative. So the odds that we are higher, the percentage is higher, are very good. We're represented by all socioeconomic and educational backgrounds. Advanced degrees. Some people are unemployed. Some people are volunteers. I mean, you name it, it does not discriminate. Hoarding disorder or disordered cluttering first shows there are first inclinations at about age 13 or 14. I can give an example. When I was a young girl, I was a teenager and I had a pair of shoes, and this was in the 70s, and they were perfectly worn in. You didn't want brand new shoes, squeaky clean shoes. You wanted them gently worn. And that was the style at the time. And my mother decided she was going to replace my shoes, and I begged her not to. I came home from school one day and she had thrown the shoes away, and I was devastated. And the reason why I bring it up is because I still remember it. And that's because my disordered cluttering had started by then. What happens is, over time, we accumulate belongings. So at 13, 14, your environment is controlled by your parents. So it's very difficult to have a lot of clutter at that time. As you get older, you accumulate and accumulate more. People think that only the elderly clutter, but the reality is it's taken that long to get to a point where things have become dysfunctional. So there is a high occurrence of high intelligence and creativity with disordered cluttering. So the characteristics are, we have excessive beliefs and emotional attachments to possessions. Distress and avoidance come with choices. Distorted beliefs about the importance or value, like how I referenced the value of, say, fast food containers that are going to be saved. In this, you can look at creativity, which is, we think of other things to do with the belongings. This is great. This is something I can wash and keep and use in the future. So there's a value to that possession. So we focus with to a great degree, organization and focus and attention. Insight is low. So the majority of people with disordered cluttering do not know. They do not know. They don't have insight enough to realize that it's a problem. They may be hearing that it's a problem, but they're not seeing that it's a problem. And they did studies, when they did studies of the brain, it showed that the area of the brain that is alerted, or I don't know how to describe it, alerted. So if you walk into a room that's extremely cluttered, you're going to feel uncomfortable. For people with disordered cluttering, the brain areas do not alert like they do for people without disordered cluttering. So there's a level of comfortability in a situation where there are a lot of belongings, where it would be alarming to someone who doesn't have them or disordered cluttering. So the impact, as you can see, there are a lot of them, but and I think Dana can back me up on this. Overwhelm is number one. I think anyone would be overwhelmed being faced with that amount of stuff, and how to handle the situation. The isolation. So people don't come over. We don't allow people to come over. We don't reach out, especially if we don't realize we have a problem. We just hide it. There's a lot of shame, although I've met people with disordered cluttering that do not have shame, which is a really good thing. They don't feel the emotional shame that most of us do. There's a lot of stigma. With the overwhelm comes severe despair. How are we going to handle this? And procrastination is, I would say, number two for the impact. Definitely. So physical illness, strained relationships, falls, the financial burden, and then unsanitary and unsafe living conditions. So don't The don'ts are when we're talking about approaching someone who may have a problem. These are the things that we don't want to do, which is nag. It's not going to make them understand. Never question the value of a belonging. Never touch or discard items without permission. Forced cleanouts are extremely traumatizing. And what happens is the person with disordered cluttering digs in even more because it's so traumatizing. They're so upset. It makes things worse. Often I hear about family, say someone's in the hospital and family comes over and decides to clean up the home. And that's another very traumatizing experience. So privacy is really important. And for anyone to get help, effective help, there's got to be emotional support and or treatment. So I am the chair of the Orange County Task Force on Hoarding, and we do have friends and family come in with cases that they want to discuss. So it's not just agencies. But one of the things we do is educate. So the task force is education and advocacy. So the do's are the approach must be educated. So you're being educated today, which is fantastic. Compassion has to be a part of it. We need truly unconditional support. My mouth is getting very dry. Truly unconditional support. Privacy, I talked about that. Patience. The process of going through belongings is long and tedious. So it takes real commitment. Building trust, have to build trust. People are so used to people wanting to get rid of their belongings. It's not going to work. You have to build trust by not doing the behaviors like taking things or touching things without permission. And assembling a team, bringing together a community is how you have to approach it. So that could be organizers, people helping sort, programs like Adult Protective Services who bring them resources. Before anybody can get into any kind of recovery, they do have to have just a tiny bit of insight. Otherwise, there's no way to get into a recovery. So you've got to assess whether they've got the capacity. So treatment and recovery, we're going to talk about that. It's understanding the limitations and vulnerability of the individual. So there's one of the ways toward recovery is through a book called Buried in Treasures. And it's David Tolan, Randy Frost, and 𝗣𝗿𝗲𝘀𝗃𝗃𝗃. And it is mostly CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's educational, and then it uses CBT to start challenging thoughts and feelings, the thoughts that create the feelings and the overwhelm and the avoidance. And so Buried in Treasures is a workshop. It's a workshop with the book, and I lead them. It's virtual and guided. And for the Buried in Treasures program, they compared a study between clinician-led workshops and peer-led workshops. And the peer-led workshops were 85% more effective than clinician. And that I attribute to the isolating experience that comes along with disordered cluttering. It's so isolating. So to have a peer and know that someone else has been there and knows how to get into recovery makes a huge difference. So I am a big proponent of peer anything. Mental health assessment should be done because you want to see if there are any comorbidities in order to effectively address disordered cluttering. If you have depression, you have to treat the depression, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to get anyone in, get any amount of recovery. And I cannot see. Hold on. All right, this is not allowing me. So therapeutic sorting. I think it's my next slide. Therapeutic sorting is a technique that I have created, and it involves 3 different things. One is motivational interviewing, which anyone who's gone through the Medi-Cal peer support specialist training has learned motivational interviewing. And then there's exposure and response prevention, which is where you sort, and when you're sorting, you sit with it and you tolerate the negative emotions instead of walking away and avoiding. And cognitive behavioral therapy, like I was talking about with 𝗣𝗿𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗲𝗿, is you challenge your thoughts that create feelings about the possessions. So we're reframing with the CBT. This is the approach. So we're going to challenge thoughts and beliefs. We're going to curb acquisition. There is no way to approach any recovery with disordered cluttering without curbing acquisition. We've got to stop shopping or picking things up on the curb or going to thrift stores or getting gifts, because getting gifts is passive acquiring. So what we do is we ask people, please don't give me gifts. So there are a lot of ways to curb acquiring. And then therapeutic sorting, which is to discard and recycle clutter. We do through 𝗣𝗿𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 and how to make rules. And we write those down and we go through all the rules. We ask ourselves questions. The rules are questions. For example, how many of these do I already have? And you would use that rule both for acquiring and for sorting. Strategy 4, finding and joining a support group and or treatment with a clinician. Absolutely necessary for recovery. And then strategy 5 is obviously making sure that we have barriers set up, or not barriers, but strategies to prevent stopping decluttering and resuming acquiring. So 𝗣𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 is the book I discussed. This is the virtual guided workshop. I also listed the Beyond Our Belongings. That is the name of my support group. And we have those on Thursdays and one Saturday a month. And then there's information about the Orange County Task Force on Hoarding. I'll leave this up for a minute if anyone wants to take down any of the information. The 𝗣𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 workbook is very effective. I've done it 3 times. It's also what we use to train peers to work with other peers. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We'll get into that a little more. All right, so boundaries. for supervising peers who are working with people with disordered cluttering. It's a very casual setting coming into someone's home, and there can be blurred lines. Also, there's a limit of self-disclosure. With peers, we never want to do self-disclosure unless it benefits them, not benefits us. So we have to determine, and what I'm sharing going to help them, or is only helping me by sharing it. For instance, I go into a long story about everything that I've acquired, and it's so great. And oh, I found this sale. If you're self-disclosing about recovery, that's fine. But other kind of self-disclosure is actually going to be detrimental rather than helpful. So sorting can be very emotional. Peers can be triggered. Enabling the tendency to acquire and save is strong, can reinforce the client's inclinations. The peer who's working may not challenge them as they should because they agree. Disordered cluttering is, and this term is used in AA. It's a program that I'm in. I have 31 years of sobriety. And there's a saying, cunning, baffling, and powerful. And I can apply that here with disordered cluttering. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. So burnout, definitely possible. Progress is slow. Work is overwhelming. Ethics. So confidentiality. I had a peer who was working with another peer and happened to reveal that information to someone who was not involved in the situation. And this was a complete breach of confidentiality. Absolutely unacceptable. Another element is getting gifts. So the tendency for a peer, a client who is decluttering, is to offer things to the peer who's working with them. That is a no-no. Obviously, termination with theft, building and maintaining trust. You cannot have that relationship without the trust. And as I wrote here, clients are tired of others wanting to discard their belongings. I'm sorry, my mouth is really dry. I'm very nervous. I don't know why I'm so nervous.
You're doing great.
Thank you. So safety is a consideration for peers when they're helping. We've got physical safety concerns, so cluttered spaces, squalor. They may need protective gear, although in my case, I have not sent anyone into a job where there was squalor. And I think it just really depends on the organization, whether they want to do that or not. Cleaning companies, when you've got severe squalor, I would recommend a cleaning company. They have cleaning companies for hazardous waste and things like that. And then, of course, emotional safety for the peer working with the person with disordered cluttering, which is debriefing with maybe a coworker, supervision, and then, of course, promoting self-care. Did I just go backwards? Yes. Okay, so first qualification is to do the Buried in Treasures workshop, if not once, then twice. And the reason why is they can learn the techniques with CBT. that they can use when they're working with clients. The other thing that I teach them is my method for therapeutic sorting, which involves the three things, which is motivational interviewing, assessing the stages of change for motivational interviewing, the ERP, exposure and response prevention, and then the CBT. So the obviously California Medi-Cal peer support specialist training covers ethics, boundaries, values, motivational interviewing, the ORS method, which is open-ended questions, affirming, reflecting, and summarizing, which is we really get the client to open up and think for themselves about really evaluating their situation. And then for training, we would have certification, you know, whether we want the training, do we want them certified? Yes. Just because the training is so comprehensive and really good. Insurance for heavy work and cleaning, I have not had a peer do that. And you know, it's going to be up to the organization. For therapeutic sorting, that's what I'm looking at for peers. For peers is just the therapeutic sorting, maybe some light organizing, but not doing any heavy work or heavy cleaning. And then shadowing and volunteering is important to do first. And then, so I have Dana, and how am I doing on time? 4:30. Okay, we're doing well. So I have some questions for Dana.
Okay.
And I need to pull them up. Okay, Dana, thank you for being here, first of all. Thank you so much. How do you feel when someone touches your belongings or comments on your stuff?
Offended. I'm getting better at it as I'm dealing with it now. So if it's coming from family or friends, then it does feel offensive. But I am more open to a peer. And now that I'm in recovery and working on actively decluttering and not acquiring, I'm more tolerant because I feel like it's kind of an open topic with family and probably one friend. My BFF is who I communicate with about it.
Okay, thank you. I know for me, it was my best friend and her sister-in-law came over to help me one time. And they were very, very assertive. They had me sit on my front deck while they cleaned the rooms. And it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. There were things that were gone that were valuable to me. Looking back, there were things that should have gone. But at that time, I was not in recovery, and they did not have a recovery-oriented approach. So it was very traumatizing. And that's why I let everyone know that it is not going to be effective. It's going to make things worse. It's just never an option. Unless you have a situation where, for example, I had a situation with a couple and the wife, had disordered cluttering behaviors, and the husband fell and broke his hip. And we went in. I brought two other people with me, two peers, and we went in. And the wife had told me over the phone that it was just a pile of CDs that had fallen over. And when we got there, it was clearly not just a pile of CDs that had fallen over. But that was how she viewed it, because there's a thing called clutter blindness. And so the person with disordered cluttering does not notice. And I know this sounds very bizarre, but they really don't notice how bad it is. And that's that brain difference. And so for her, it was one area, a pile of CDs had fallen, and to her, because it had gotten into the path, that was the only problem. The rest of the stuff wasn't the problem. So, anyways, I don't even remember what my point was. But I think it's a good example of clutter blindness. And then, so Dana, what was it like? This is 3 questions. What was it like when I came to help? What worked or didn't work? And how did I build trust? Maybe we could start with building trust.
Knowing your past, that you had problem with disordered cluttering, that put me at ease. You disclosed that. And also I had been in the meeting through Zoom prior to her coming over. And so, Kim, it was wonderful to have you come over and see things and not be appalled and not try to get me to get rid of my favorite things. And it did help me because you helped teach me how to sort. And that even though I had a plan for those tins, I had 6 of them. You said, could you do without a few of them? Are there any you could do without? And so I did end up tossing some away. So, you know, we think that we have these great containers to put things in, and other people see it as, or might see it as trash. It was very helpful having you come over.
Okay, thank you. And I want to say, Dana did very well. Very well, very receptive, caught on with therapeutic sorting right away. And she's been an inspiration to the group ever since. So she has done amazing.
Thank you.
So what have I shared or done, say, in the support group, even when I came over, that wasn't quite as helpful?
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay.
It's all valuable, and so I'm at a loss for words there.
Thank you. What about approaches that other people have had? Have you had people come and say, let's declutter? Have they tried to? What other approaches that didn't work have you had?
Me trying to handle it on my own didn't work. Family members talking to me about it didn't work. Having it get worse didn't work. I do remember as a teenager having a real messy room. I would clean it up and then it would just reclutter again. Other things that I didn't know about was that having some company come in and just clean out the place is, I didn't realize it was traumatizing and that it was likely to recur. And so, because that's what we were planning on, except that I had a flare up of my depression and opted to put the brakes on it and then I learned in the group what is effective and what is not effective historically. And I also wanted to share, this is not a requirement, but I'm trying to put a face on things. You know, I worked as a nurse for 45 years. I just retired. I was a nurse case manager. So you may have peers that have this problem and are just not about to talk about it. So just as an FYI. And I call myself a hoarder because of hoarding disorder being a diagnosis and working in the medical field. I tend to think that way naturally. So I do call myself a hoarder. I don't mind it. What's next?
I think that was it for my questions.
Okay.
Is there anything that you would like to add?
It's refreshing to see families' response to cleaning out my kitchen. You know, I don't have squalor. I don't have, you know, rodents and pests and things here. I am a very enthusiastic crafter, and I've got like 3 rooms full of art supplies. I don't have piles of trash. It's not anything like the hoarders show on TV.
Great. Thank you, Dana. So we're going to have a Q&A now, and I was wondering if you would be willing to be included in that Q&A, Dana?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Question and answer. Does anyone have any questions? If so, can you please use the raise hand feature?
I have a question.
Okay.
One thing that I have experienced for people who are struggling with clutter is that if they have Section 8 and they have to have their home inspected, it brings on a huge crisis in their life, even to the point of suicidal thoughts, and it's just a very, very major event. So, and this is something that happens regularly. It's not just a one-time thing. There's going to be an annual inspection, and there's a risk of losing housing if you don't pass and all this stuff. So I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions about how to support someone through that.
Well, I think first and foremost is recovery would be important, because the only way they're going to pass an inspection and then maintain it, they need to have the recovery where they can continue to maintain. Because with recovery, we have a recovery maintenance support group. It's called Unburied from Treasures. And it's after the Buried in Treasures workbook, after you go through that workshop. So I know that for someone to pass an inspection, they may need to have a cleanup. And I have worked as a liaison in circumstances like those. And that is working as an in-between the cleanup company and the client. Because what happens is those cleanup companies come and just mow over. They mow over everything. If they have someone like me in the middle, I can make sure that valuables are being protected, because those cleanup companies can, in the instance I shared about the husband and wife, they had to do a forced clean out for him to come home from the hospital. There was no way to move around in the condo. So we had to get a company. And I worked as a liaison during that time, actually as a volunteer. And it was through the task force. And the cleanup company was throwing valuables away left and right. And this was a learning experience for me, because I could only be in one place. And if in hindsight, if I would have known, I would have arranged it very differently, which is, instead of them coming over a period of 2 days to do it all and squeeze it in, I would say no, 4 days, because we need enough time to discern what truly is valuable. Because those clean out companies will come in, they want to squeeze it all in. I mean, they literally used shovels in the house. It was really bad. And the prices are prohibitive. And it's aggressive.
Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing that.
Yeah. Orlando.
That was a great question. Yeah, I've seen that a lot. And definitely in Section 8. Yeah, so I definitely appreciate that question. What I'm thinking and I'm looking at as I always hear your presentation and what you do, you know, the correlation between mental cluttering and physical cluttering, it's almost a blurred line at times. And I think a lot of, you know, you can see if someone's maybe cluttering items, but a lot of times we don't really even talk about the mental cluttering that goes on every day in society. And that's a whole other probably, but very similar in the way it's addressed. And I don't think that we even have the training for that or see it, which is also can create a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on a lot of individuals. So I'm just wondering, I definitely want to expand what you're doing in that sense of, like, I would love to expand that to mental cluttering as well. I just want to know what your thoughts were, if anybody else had any ideas on that.
Well, there's certainly some mental cluttering with disordered cluttering.
You think it's both at the same time?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's so much going on.
How about the mental cluttering without the items? Maybe without the,
Can you expand a little more on that?
Well, a lot of times people are filled with a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, and a lot of ideas that don't let them move around. So, you know, you could look at it from a physical perspective. If you're talking about a room and there is a lot of cluttering, yeah, you can't move around in that room. But I'm looking at it in a little different picture, since I deal with peers on a regular basis, and I see the cluttering and the ideas that they have that doesn't let them move around in the universe, you know, that doesn't let them move around because of that cluttering. So, you know, I can see there's both what you see and what you don't see. I mainly focus on this side because I don't have the experience that you have with the the physical cluttering.
Yeah.
But I really see that side. So, but that's just the way I perceive it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on what the diagnosis might be,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I agree. No, I definitely. I just was wondering if you've come across that where you see it more on the mental cluttering than you do even the physical. Because I'm sure there's both exist,
Mm-hmm.
both exist. But I definitely love the techniques and what you're using, the therapeutic sorting, all of those things are wonderful. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Mhm.
Thank you. Dino.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dino. I wanted to thank Dana so much for showing up and speaking today. And thank you, Kimberly, for everything that you're sharing with us regarding hoarding. My name is Dino again, and I am a peer team lead. I work at a short-term residential. Fun fact, I went through peer training through this program. Libby was my wonderful instructor. And one of the things regarding hoarding is I do come from a history of hoarders. Ours stem from maybe, recovering after like the Great Depression and our family recovering, and the excitement just has, kept acquiring. And what I really liked hearing was that this is something that is really an individual, path and an individual journey. And within my own personal journey with it, I've had a lot of assistance through occupational therapy. It's been one of the best things for me to understand how to get through the workload of, the emotional process, but also maybe some of my limitations and so on. And it's also allowed me to process it to be long term and more sustainable because I have solid kind of evidence or solid tools that work for me. Now, on the flip side of this, when it comes to someone in the field who is seeking services and they have, if it's a hoarding situation, what happens a lot of the times is they may need services, they may need spaces that are shared, they may need short-term residentials because they're going through a crisis. And I'm not one to speak of other than my own experience. So I'll say in my situation, I was going through a crisis and I had to get through a lot of the challenges. And one of the challenges was that the spaces that I was in, and also the space that I offered to other individuals, they're quite small, meaning that if I'm running a crisis center, it's a one closet type deal that just has a small door and it's shared. And a lot of the challenges is that there's not enough support of understanding what this is about. And it's similar to like trauma informed care. And so that's one of my favorite things about this particular meeting today is that we're learning on how to treat individuals who experience this. It's a much more informed way. And again, I appreciate Dana sharing what she shared. And I don't want to give too much more time, but the challenges again in the world is that other individuals now have to navigate their life. And a lot of times when we don't have this knowledge, they're faced with what someone else said earlier of like a crisis and like, what do I do? And I do think there should be a lot of care given to them and maybe even like storage tokens for them to kind of rebuild their lives. We do put a lot of emphasis on getting them homes, but sometimes they need storage in the interim until they get those homes. And I think there can be a lot of discussion around that. Thank you for hearing me out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dino.
Thank you, Dina.
All right. So we have how many minutes?
Another 5 minutes or so.
Another
5 or 6.
7 minutes.
Okay.
So in the breakout at the beginning, were there any other questions?
I have another question, even though I feel like I'm dominating the group. But
Okay.
I feel that, kind of related to what Dino said, one situation that I have seen is that we'll be supporting someone to get into housing, and they will state that they don't have enough money to get into housing. And when we look at their income, they do have the income, but they're spending their money on having all their belongings in several storage units. And all the money's going to storage, and those belongings are extremely important to them, to the point where they would rather be homeless than lose those belongings. And they face often a lot of judgment from others around this. So it's something that I have frequently seen, that it is a reason that it maintains the person in homelessness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there are people with homelessness because they were evicted. They have lost their housing. And that's anywhere from someone who owned their own home and it got red tagged and maybe went into a conservatorship, and you see someone who ends up on the streets.
Yep.
It's dire.
Yeah. I mean, one individual, he had lost belongings in a fire. And so he absolutely insisted on having a storage unit because he said, I just don't know when there could be another fire. This way, I have less risk because I don't have all my belongings in one location. But he couldn't have housing and a storage. He didn't have enough money for both. And so he chose storage.
Yeah.
Because he said, if I just have housing, I could lose everything in a fire.
Yep. It is that strong.
Yeah.
It is cunning, baffling, and powerful.
Yeah. No, it is.
So what I was going to say is, if anyone wanted to come off mute and just share a couple of things that you've learned today that you've taken away from the training or the presentation. Does anybody want to share?
Angeline?
I put a couple questions up there for Kimberly if she wouldn't mind answering them.
In chat?
Yes. Thank
Okay, hold on.
Let's see, I'm looking for them. Let's see.
Where are they? Are funds available for people who do not have the money for cleanup? The answer to that question is it depends on what city and what county they live in.
Okay.
And then where can a person get the mental assistance? Any clinical, any mental health place should have resources, but the problem is that we don't have many clinicians who are experts in disorder cluttering. They just aren't. So I don't know of any personally. So there's kind of a deficit when it comes to that. And let's see. One of the things we do is in the task force meetings, when people bring the cases and everybody troubleshoots and brainstorms, we end up finding out if cities have funds. We find out, has someone found someone in the mental health field who has an expertise? So, and then how and why? Why and how I got involved? Because I have disordered cluttering. So it's a passion of mine. I was asked to join the task force as a volunteer, still a volunteer, but now the chair. But I was asked to participate in a video for a police department, Santa Ana Police Department. And I was asked to participate in that video. And then as a natural progression from that, they asked me to join the task force. So it's my passion. And did I cover it all?
Thank you.
I think had Dino on hand was up, Kimberly, just in case you didn't see.
Oh, he took it down.
Oh, thanks, Orlando. That's nice of you. I learned a lot today, and if I may say, I did learn that disorder cluttering is not the result of maybe going without as a child or an adult going through, depression. I think that's really important to know, and I think it's important to bust myths. I think the more we can bust those myths, then we let go of a little bit of the stigma, hopefully a lot of bit of it.
Mhm.
So, and I also like to see that it's not ADHD. I learned that as well today, amongst the other things too. Thanks, Kimberly.
Yeah, thank you, Dino. So my contact information is up on the screen. I'm available for any questions after this session. Feel free to reach out to me and I will do my absolute best to answer your questions, or if anyone's interested in the task force meetings, let me know.
Can you share your screen, Kimberly, so that
Are-
people can see your information?
Isn't it up there?
I don't think it's being shared at the moment.
I see it.
Oh, you do? Oh, it's just me then? Okay. All right.
Uh-oh. There it is.
So I'm putting in the chat a link so that you can fill out the evaluation and request a certificate of attendance if you would like one for attending this session. I want to thank Kimberly and Dana for presenting today and being so vulnerable and honest with us. One of the things I learned is that recovery is possible. That gives me so much hope for all the people that I've met that are struggling, and all the judgment that I've seen around that. So I just love knowing that there's these really concrete resources that are available. So thank you so much for bringing this to our community. I know it's very much needed. I also want to let everybody know we're going to have a plenary session to kind of wrap things up for this conference. It's not going to be held in this Zoom account. It's in a different Zoom. It is listed on your conference schedule if you'd like to attend. And I also just put it in the chat so that you can make a copy of that link if you'd like to come. All are welcome to come. We just thought we'd create a forum where we could come together, share learnings, maybe do some networking and things like that. If you have any feedback for our team about this conference and possible future conferences, very open to hearing about that as well. So, yeah, thanks to all of you for attending. I think this is such an important subject. So, and thank you, Kimberly, for presenting on it.
Thanks,
Yeah, I want to
Kimberly.
thank Dana
Thank you.
again, and thank you, Libby, for all of your support and putting on this wonderful conference.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah. Great job, Kimberly, Orlando says. All right,
Thank you,
folks.
Orlando.
Thank you all.
I hope you have a great afternoon and hopefully see you in the plenary session.